Ladies and gentlemen, Robin Williams.
What's your brain doing when 10,000 people are laughing their heads off?
I'm not a tuna.
The human brain is, an extraordinary 3.5-pound gland. The moment you think you understand it, it comes out with something else.
The breaking news, actor Robin Williams is dead at the age of 63.
They believe that the Bay Area resident committed suicide.
There was a lot of media speculation.
On Robin Williams' mind before his death, money.
He's broke or he's depressed or he's just given up.
The last movie, it was clear to all of us on that set that something was going on with Robin.
There was something eroding within him.
I was called in to go over the coroner's report. It was the beginning of understanding what had really gone on. My husband had unknowingly been battling a deadly disease.
Lewy Body Dementia is a devastating illness, increases anxiety, self-doubt, causes delusions that have never been present in someone.
Nearly every region of his brain was under attack. He experienced himself disintegrating.
I remember him saying to me, I don't know what's going on, I'm not me anymore.
It really amazed me that Robin could walk or move at all. People who are incredibly brilliant can tolerate degenerative diseases better. Robin Williams was a genius.
He was always able to power through it, and he'd become this guy that you knew, remembered, and loved.
The way that he was able to battle the inner turmoils, he was a freaking warrior.
It no longer feels loyal to be silent about it, but maybe more loyal to share.
He was blessed with what his heart was capable of in the midst of fear. He wanted to help people be less afraid.
Self goes away. Ego, bye-bye. The thing that matters are others. That's what life is about.
So something that you may not have known is that it wasn't until Robin's autopsy that we got an accurate diagnosis. The forensic pathologist described that Robin had diffuse Lewy body disease, one of the worst cases he'd ever seen, and that the Lewy bodies were spread throughout nearly every region of Robin's brain and brainstem. And then he turned to me and asked if I was surprised by this. Now, I'd never heard of Lewy body disease before, or any brain disease, in fact. But the idea that something had invaded nearly every region of Robin's brain, that made perfect sense to me. Because I saw my husband suffering that final year. I saw him battling this invisible thing. So Lewy body disease is abnormal deposits of the alpha-synuclein protein in the brain. These deposits, or aggregates, were named after Friedrich Lewy, who discovered them in 1912. There is no accepted biomarker or treatment at this time. However, progress is being made. So with the name of the disease, finally, I began looking into it, trying to understand what happened. What had we just gone through? What was it that took my husband's life? To begin that process, I sent Robin's last 2 years of medical records, coroner's report, and brain scan to 4 leading medical professionals. They reviewed everything and all agreed that while Robin's case was not unique, it was in fact one of the worst they'd ever seen. Now in 2016, the American Academy of Neurology asked me to write an editorial about our experience with this disease from the caregiver point of view. And it's called The Terrorist Inside My Husband's Brain. In it, I describe our experience and include key points like the Parkinson's diagnosis that Robin received a few months before he passed. And I also raise the question, would it really have mattered if we'd had an accurate diagnosis while Robin was alive, since there is no cure? And I was convinced it would not have mattered at all. In fact, maybe Robin would have ended up becoming one of the most famous lab rats for this disease. And I was, looking back, I thought, gosh, maybe it would have aggravated these symptoms that he already had. So what was the point? What I can tell you is that my thinking since writing that editorial has changed entirely. Diagnosis is everything, not just for the patients and caregivers, but for the doctors, clinicians, and the scientists too. In our case, if we'd had a proper diagnosis, we wouldn't have had to waste so much precious time trying to figure out what was going on. We could have sought specialized care. Maybe Robin would have opted to be in a clinical trial or to donate to research. We could have known that we weren't alone. Maybe reached out to the Lewy Body Dementia community. Ultimately, the bottom line is that Robin would not have had to have been so afraid. And fear is a theme here I'm going to be touching on. So if there was an accurate means of diagnosing, doctors, they wouldn't have had to continue playing the guessing game. That's not easy on them. It's not easy on anybody. So having to diagnose this by deduction is really hard. Now, without a method of diagnosing accurately, then also the scientists are missing out on key data that would help them in getting to the developed treatments and therapies. So the whole ecosystem of this disease space would benefit by having an accurate method of diagnosing. Now, when I started researching this, a lot of our experience finally started to make sense. It's like first we went through this roller coaster ride blindfolded for almost a year, and then I'm out the other side, Robin doesn't make it, and I start to learn about the science of what happened. And there were things that I learned along the way that really surprised me. And also things that matched up so much to what we'd been through. So for instance, there are these certain hallmarks of Lewy body dementia, and one of them is called new onset anxiety sustained. The way that this manifested was Robin and I were enjoying a weekend away, and he started to have gut discomfort. So he was experiencing pain, and he was also at the same time having this heightened anxiety and fear, which was understandable. We got into touch with the doctor, of course, and he started running all kinds of tests. He thought it might be diverticulitis, and the results came back negative. So all this is going on, results are coming back negative, and then Robin starts to feel better from all this. But what was not going away was this heightened sense of anxiety. That wasn't going away. Now, I knew my husband's normal baseline moods, fears, and anxieties by this point. We all know our spouse's baselines. But this irrational fear, irrational anxiety, was totally out of character for Robin. Now, another one of the symptoms that, I want to pause on that, and I want to say, regarding this irrational fear and anxiety, what I found out later is that, and this was when the coroner's report was read to me, is that Robin had besides having the Lewy bodies spread throughout nearly every region of his brain and brainstem, one of the areas that had a tremendous amount of Lewy bodies. So the circuits were, can you pause thank you. Thank you. The circuits were really breaking down, was in the amygdala region of the brain. Now, I felt like when I learned about that afterwards, it felt like I'd found the smoking gun of what Robin had gone through. Remember what I said about fear being a thread through this? For Robin, this spike in fear and anxiety, it just continued over the next 10 months. And it wasn't coming down at all. And it was because he had a proliferation of the Lewy bodies in the amygdala region of the brain. So that instant, that weekend away, it turned into it sparked the beginning of us chasing symptoms over those next 10 months. And the symptoms would appear and disappear randomly, and no one knew that they were connected. There were so many, and they varied so much. But there was underneath this disease, Lewy body, that was underlying all of it. Now, the symptoms were things like a poor sense of smell, constipation, increasing confusion and cognitive difficulties, memory problems, physical movements like tremors. He had cogwheel rigidity, shuffling gait, memory problems, and he started to have, he had so much insomnia and delusional looping. The delusional looping really kicked in that really got very difficult at the end in the last several months. If you're not familiar with what delusional looping is, it's when irrational fears take over, and you're unable to talk yourself out of it. You know, we all have fears and things that happen in our lives, but either a good friend or circumstances or our own sense of self, we can talk ourselves out of it and move through it. And, you know, some fear is good in life, right? But this was irrational looping, irrational delusions around things that just weren't real. And it got, you know, it was going on for hours and then days, and there was just no way of bringing him out of it. So I hope you get the point. There were a lot of symptoms, but they didn't all present at once. And some were more pronounced than others as well. Like I said, insomnia, delusional looping, fear, anxiety. So this rhythm with symptoms and things appearing and then disappearing before you get to the bottom of it, and then another one appears, it's this idea of whack-a-mole with symptoms is very common with LBD. Now, another hallmark is sensitivity to medications. Like most people with LBD, Robin had a heightened sensitivity to medications. And the way that this sensitivity manifests is that medications can have unpredictable effects, making it really difficult to treat. So in some cases, it's like the total opposite effect of what the doctor anticipates. So it doesn't take a lot of medication. So someone like Robin needed very little. Now, a keynote about antipsychotics in particular is that they can be dangerous to someone with LBD. They can cause slurred speech, increase confusion, and even speed up the disease progression, which is sometimes irreversible once the medication is removed. Now, Robin was given antipsychotics at one point and taken off about a week later when the increased confusion had become too much. And I can tell you, you know, looking back, my opinion is that it most likely worsened things and progressed the disease at that point. So generally speaking, so those are a few of the hallmarks. Another one is hallucinations. And generally speaking, hallucinations are seen as a tell that someone might or could have LBD. Now, Robin never had hallucinations. And when I was talking with one of the 4 doctors who had reviewed all of his records, I said, you know, Robin had just about every one of the 40+ symptoms at one time or another, but he never had hallucinations. How could that be? And the doctor paused and he said, oh, Susan, Robin definitely was hallucinating. He definitely had hallucinations. And I want to say that that was one of many really hard moments for me. You know, my husband wasn't here anymore to talk about it with me, and yet I totally understood that and why he took that one with him. As I described about fear and some of the symptoms, I just told you a smattering of the symptoms, those combined with hallucinations, in my mind, is just complete unnecessary roughness when it comes to fear and anxiety. And if your amygdala is basically already broken, so your thermostat for modulating your own response to fear and anxiety, I can't imagine what kind of hell that's like to live with. And, you know, I thought, Robin and I were in this. We were tracking down all those different symptoms with a plethora of doctors that weren't really communicating with each other because we couldn't get specialized care yet because we didn't have the name of what was going on. We were chasing something, right? And he was suffering, I totally lost my train of thought. Robin, help. Yeah, he was suffering more. What hurt and was difficult is, here I'd been in the trenches with him. You know, we were battling this thing. And I thought I knew everything he was dealing with. And then to find out there was just this other aspect that was his alone is hard, you know? Okay, let's hop to the prevalence. So how how prevalent is LBD, and how does it stack up next to a few more of the well-known neurodegenerative diseases like Alzheimer's and Parkinson's? So the estimated number of individuals currently affected in the United States are Lewy Body Dementia, approximately 1 million. Parkinson's, between 500,000 to 1 million, and Alzheimer's, as many as 5 million. And these numbers are from the National Institute of Neurological Disorders and Stroke. And what I want to say about these numbers is, while they're probably on the conservative side, if you see other numbers out there, they relate insofar as the percentages from what I've seen. You know, they may be a little bit more, but the percentages are roughly the same as far as distribution. And what I also want to say is that without actually having an accurate method of diagnosing LBD while someone is alive, and without autopsies being done on everybody, I'm going to guess, and I'm not a scientist, but I'm going to guess as an artist that these numbers are very, very conservative for all of these diseases. So while these numbers reflect the prevalence and the relationships of these, what they're not showing is that there is a deeper story here. And it's a story about how these diseases are connected and that they work together in some ways. On the surface, their symptoms can appear so similar that it's not uncommon to have misdiagnosis and switched diagnosis. In fact, what I want to tell you a little story about is when Robin and I were we were seeing his general neurologist, and we were in the office. Robin had just gotten the Parkinson's diagnosis. Personally, I was relieved. I thought we finally had an answer. You know, this was a few months before he left. So I was relieved. Rob and I could kind of tell wasn't buying it. You know, I was excited. We're going to get in the solution, and we had this appointment with the motor specialist pretty soon. And the general neurologist was telling us, you know what, it's going to be fine. There's a lot of great medications, Robin. You've probably got another 10 good years, and you know. That's not easy to hear. I'm just going to say. I don't know. But we're digesting this. We're working through it. We have our allotted 5 minutes with the general neurologist because insurance purposes, you get a certain set of time. And I've spent a little time on Capitol Hill talking about that. It's not enough time, you know. And I want to just put you in the mind space of Robin for a moment and go back to with everything he was dealing with, combined with there was no more break between day and night. It was like our house at night was like night at the museum. I mean, you don't have this break when you're looping and you're dealing with all these struggles, right? These symptoms. And so we're in the office and we're moving through the steps with the doctor, and he says, so towards the end, we're just about good to go. And Robin asked one question. And now I'm a parent raising my 2 sons when they were younger. I always know it's that last question before bedtime. It's the question they ask you when they're in the back of the car and you're looking in the rearview mirror and they're asking the most important question in the world. There are these times when they ask you something really important. Well, the last question before we left the doctor's office, Robin said, do I have Alzheimer's, dementia? Am I schizophrenic? And the doctor said, no, no, and no, Robin, you're going to be fine. All you have is Parkinson's. And our time was up. And I can tell you what I know now is with what I know now, I would have known enough to push pause and said, time out. Why are you asking that, Robin? Or I would have said, why are you asking that, honey? And that would have been enough to just investigate a little bit further. So, okay, so let's hop to, as I was saying, that these diseases, so it's common to have like a switch diagnosis, a misdiagnosis, and sometimes no diagnosis at all. And all of this, it's not to fault the doctors or anyone in the system, it's because we're just not there yet. And these diseases are that complex, and we can't see into what's going on yet. So on the surface, it's tough to see, but underneath the surface, it's very common to have mixed pathology. And Ryan, in fact, who you just saw earlier, really helped me understand this. I was shocked to find out that Robin actually had all three of these diseases in there. So he had the beginning of amyloid plaques, the Alzheimer's pattern of tau tangles, and of course, the Lewy bodies. Well, they were everywhere. So with all these, I couldn't wrap my brain around that at first. Like, you mean my husband had Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, and Lewy body? For God's sakes, how did this like escape notice? And now he's not here anymore. You know, what happened? So the neuropathologist who examined Robin's brain tissue, he helped me understand that, well, first of all, Ryan helped me understand that he described it like there were three racehorses in Robin's brain. There was the amyloid plaques that were taking up the rear. They were just beginnings. And then there was the Alzheimer's pattern, the tau tangles that were kind of coming up the race. But the Lewy bodies were winning the horse race by far. And that, I'm a visual person, that helped me kind of start getting it. So the neuropathologist who did, he was the second neuropathologist, the specialist they called in, because the main coroner could not believe what he was seeing. It was so prevalent throughout every tissue. They sent it off to UCSF neuropathologist, and he explained to me, he helped me understand, he actually created a whole PowerPoint for me with Robin's brain tissue, with the slide samples, and described to me, he answered my questions. And one of my first questions was, in trying to understand the difference between Lewy body and Parkinson's, and I asked him, was the Parkinson's diagnosis correct? And he described it to me this way, that it's a spectrum disease, and on the one end you have Parkinson's, on the other end you have Lewy body, and that they have the same essential underlying shared biology, that is the Lewy bodies themselves. Now, I used to be in graphic design and marketing for 20 plus years, and I got really angry when I first discovered that in that moment, because I thought, how is this not known that Lewy bodies is like the essential biology underneath here? And I was starting to understand that this is, basically I came to really begin to understand that science is so much like art. And I love that about science, by the way. So depending on which symptoms present first, can determine whether you are given a Parkinson's diagnosis or an LBD diagnosis. In Robin's case, because he was experiencing these physical presentation, the cogwheel rigidity, tremors, shuffling gait, Parkinsonian mask, thrashing at night, frozen stance, these things are on the physical manifestation side. So he was given first the Parkinson's diagnosis. Now, we hadn't gotten yet to a deeper understanding. We were a week away from going to an inpatient neurocognitive testing facility that, in other words, and that was the week Robin decided to leave. And I don't think he ever wanted to go in there because my belief, his fears, he would not be able to come out. And we would have gotten to this diagnosis eventually by deduction that it was LBD. We would have gotten there, but we ran out of time. So he had the physical manifestations of Parkinson's, but that was actually the tail end of his disease. And because we don't have that accurate method of diagnosing this LBD yet, seeing whether it's there and where it is, so clinically, yes, he had the Parkinson's, but pathologically, it was a whole different story. The Lewy bodies were everywhere. So what's challenging about this is that the type of symptoms that manifest from the Lewy bodies being in different portions of the brain, different regions of the brain that have to do with things like cognition, mood, and behavior, is those symptoms mimic our normal human psychology. And without a method of seeing into this, that's where it gets really hard. So LBD is neurological. It's a circuitry problem. Chemical changes that were happening in the brain, those are responsible for the psychiatric symptoms that Robin was experiencing. And I look at this disease as a great masquerader. Its symptoms its symptoms mimic the normal psychology. For example, we all, as I said earlier, experience fear or stress and anxiety, trouble sleeping, mild depression, and other issues from time to time in life. We would hardly be human if we didn't have these things. But it's impossible to see this without a way of diagnosing it accurately. So how can you tease out what's normal human psychology and what are the circuits that are actually breaking down? The result of all this was Robin's symptoms were being treated rather than the disease itself. And so people would ask me, and I wondered too, how could this happen so fast? Especially since Robin is a genius. And I found out about a really cool thing called cognitive reserve. Highly intelligent people, they have greater cognitive reserve that enables them to stave off the symptoms longer than most. And that just means that they have way more circuits up there working, a lot more means to put things away, to retrieve things, to pull things out. They basically have a bigger sandbox, a really cool decked out sandbox up there, and a lot of ways to play around and have fun. But then what happens is when things start breaking down, it's not as noticeable right away if you have a really cool decked out sandbox for your circuits. But when they start breaking down, at some point, it's like the dam suddenly breaks and they can't hold it back any longer. That was definitely Robin. And so what, in a sense, the result is that the decline that they're experiencing can appear more rapid, but when in fact it's been going on all along. So with how connected these diseases are, the solutions might be connected too. And collaboration could end up playing a really big role in getting to those solutions. So I'm on the board at the American Brain Foundation. I'm in my 6th year there. I'm vice chair of the board. And what's so exciting in this past year is a research grant has come to fruition that we've been working on pulling together with a terrific science committee that we've gathered from around the world. And it's a $3 million research grant award that's targeted at finding a biomarker for LBD. And the way we got to this, the way we got to deciding if we should work on a diagnosis as being for the research grant was, first of all, I had my opinion about it. By now, I was very clear that I wanted to focus on diagnosis, but we had several families that work with us at the American Brain Foundation who've lost people to LBD, some of our donors. And I went to them individually and asked, what do you feel is the most important area to focus on? Where do you want to see your dollars spent in the solution on this? Or what is it you want to look into? And, we're designing this award, and how do you see it? All of them said, and I didn't lead them, I didn't say, hey, I kind of want diagnosis, what do you think? I asked them, and each of them said, diagnosis. And one of those families, I can tell you, a very well-known family, lost their highly brilliant father to LBD via suicide. And everybody just, diagnosis seemed to be the thing. And so I was very happy personally, because that's what I wanted to focus on as well. So we set about getting this set up. And what I'm excited to tell you is that our partners on the project, along with those individual donors, are the Alzheimer's Association, the Michael J. Fox Foundation, and the American Academy of Neurology. And what this collaboration demonstrates is the shared interest and importance in diagnosing LBD properly. Now, as precision medicine therapies and combination therapies develop, they're going to require precision targets. And it's important to know not only if the tau tangles are there, the amyloid plaques, but we cannot let Lewy bodies fall behind. We need to know that they're there as well. So case in point, if the Alzheimer's had been detected in Robin with a blood test and then precision therapy applied, what good would that have done when the Lewy bodies were already everywhere wreaking havoc and causing chemical chaos and electronic confusion with all the circuits breaking down? So it just seems that without, and again, I'm a visual person, I want to see where things are. I can't see how we can, I know scientists can, but I just want to see it. So without an equal eye to these 3 diseases, we are wasting, I believe on some level, we are wasting time and money. And I certainly believe on many levels we're wasting life itself. So people have come to me and asked, what have you learned? What can you tell us? Our family's going through this right now. What can you tell us? And so what I would say is that if someone you know or might have or does have LBD, there are definitely 3 suggestions I would make. And none of this was our experience. This is from, again, our experience is what you don't want to have happen. So these things I'm about to tell you are things that I've learned that are important, and I wish we could have gotten to. And that is, it's really important to have specialty care. And the way to get specialty care is when you do have, you know what you're dealing with, right? So having a specialty care and working with a team and making sure that your team knows they're a team. Again, we had plenty of doctors. We had 2 psychologists, a general physician, general neurologist, motor specialist, hypnotherapist, alternative medicine guy, and physical therapist, I think I may have said. But no one was talking. So having the team know they're a team and that they're communicating with each other, that's key. Now, the lead doctor should know about LBD, Parkinson's, and Alzheimer's, and that person should be a specialist. There should also be a movement disorder specialist. Most are very experienced with medicines, and they would know that LBD patients cannot tolerate the antipsychotics. Now, I do believe there is a new antipsychotic out and check with your doctor about this, but it's something that's less crazy-making than the other ones that they were finding a lot of problems with. So I think there are other options out there, but check with your doctor. And I would also recommend consider participating in clinical trials. And if that's not possible, then maybe donating to research. In whatever way that the person can, maybe it's just simply being open to the idea of being open about the disease that they have, whether it's with their family, close friends, and close circles, or maybe even broader circles in an effort to raise awareness. All of this, in whatever way is possible, can make a difference in this disease space. So I think this is a fantastic group to throw out some challenges to. The COVID pandemic pushed science toward so much collaboration, and with the pressure on, companies rose to the challenge, and that collaboration brought innovation and results in record time. Can that same spirit be applied to address these 3 challenges? And I bet you can guess what they are. So can companies who have been working on detection of COVID pivot to detect the alpha-synuclein aggregates, the Lewy bodies? And I'm going to double down on that challenge and say, not just yes, no, are they there or not, but where are they? What's the distribution? Where the heck are they? 2, what would stop it from spreading? It's a prion disease, and the protein misfolding is what's transferring virally. So how do we interrupt that? I just found out about this recently, that there are 2 types of LBD. They're finding out that there's one with the fast track and one with the slow track. So 2 different disease pathways seem to present. I would wager that Robin had the fast track. Now, I don't know if they know what's causing that yet. And I'm not a scientist, but I'm going to guess it has something to do with the rate of that misfolding or the transfer of that of the misfolded protein. So that's number 2. Challenge number 3, as therapies come along, the challenge is going to be for early detection so that these therapies and perhaps lifestyle changes can be applied before the symptoms ever manifest. Okay, in closing, I want to give a little bit of information to you about where to find these films. Robin's Wish, the trailer that you saw at the beginning of this talk, that is available on demand and on streaming services, including iTunes, Amazon Prime, Google Play, Vudu, and more. To see the trailer or learn more, please go to robinswishfilm.com. And there's also a 45-minute educational version of the film available, and it's called Spark. And that documents Robin's battle with LBD. It's based on the longer film Robin's Wish. And it is available to institutions and groups to help raise awareness and funds for LBD research. So if you want to find out more, please contact Ben at skydojo.com. Now, I want to leave you with a little story. Robin and I, we were talking about what we wanted our legacies in life to be. Specifically, when we get to the end of our lives, looking back, how is it we want to have made people feel? Robin answered this so fast, it kind of blew my mind. He turned to me and said, I want to help people be less afraid. And I'm still trying to think of what my thing is. I'm just kind of thinking, how the hell did you come up with that so fast? And I said, that's amazing, because that's what you do. Whether on film or on stage, you just stick the pin in fear and you level the playing field. You take the rough edges off what this human experience is for all of us. That's what you do. One thing I have learned through this experience is that Robin's battle with LBD, that contained tremendous power. Tremendous power. Power that can be used now to spark change. And I believe that that change will help people be less afraid. So let's not hold back. Let's go turn something terrible into something terribly good together. Thank you.